Jodi Barrows with the Square in a Square. Welcome to what we call Quilt Talk. This is a live session where we're going to talk with some quilting friends, Kay and Kathy of the Franklin Quilt Company, and we're going to just have some conversations that quilters would enjoy listening to. And for those of you that are brand new to Jodi Barrows and the Square in a Square, I'll give you just a quick little highlight of some different things that we do. We do Quilt Talk. We kind of a magazine format of talking about quilting and sewing machines and things like that. We'll be happy to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put those on the live feed. And I'm not sure, can we see all of the questions like YouTube, Facebook, or are we only watching what's in the email webinar?
Good question.
Mr. Master. Mr. Master over there. So The wizard. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, we may have to answer your questions after we're done because I'm not sure that all the questions are coming in.
So far, I only have YouTube on here, but it's supposed to pick up all of them.
Okay, it's supposed to pick up all of them. That's kind of a trial on that. That's kind of a new technology thing that we're working on is to be able to see all of the questions coming from everywhere because there's several Facebook pages that are streaming live, YouTube, and then, of course, our webinar format, which if you've signed up with an email, then that's where we're at. Anyway, we do Quilt Talk. We did it last year.
There's Facebook.
Our first Facebook one came in. Yay. Okay, thanks for letting us know. So we do Quilt Talk, which we did it last year in August. We had 2 or 3. We're going to do 2 or 3 this week in August, and we're going to try to do more throughout the year. Now that technology and skills have improved, we're going to try, because they're Tennessee, I'm Texas, so we're going to try to do more Quilt Talk as the year goes along. But we do Quilt Club Week, which is a very intense several days of quilting, like going to like a retreat or a quilt show or whatever. We'll talk more about that later. We have our Premium Club, which is a subscription website where a lot of teaching is done. We do our live free webinars throughout the year. And what else? What did I leave out? Anyway, we have a lot of different things that we teach on and that have different names. So Kay and Kathy here from the Franklin Quilt Company, and I don't know, between the three of us, we probably have more than 150 years of sewing experience. Yeah. They have taught classes, they have traveled with their teaching, they've owned quilt shops, they've done vendors. You know, I've done all of that. Couple of home ec teachers in here and a lab tech in a previous life. Not a lab rat.
Not a lab rat, lab tech. Yep.
But anyway, so we're going to, if you have questions, get them in there and we'll do our best to answer them today or maybe later this week in a Quilt Talk. But I want to start out with some of the questions that I got off of that other website. And the question was, what prevents you from either sitting down to sew or getting your mojo going so that you could sew, or what about my my thing that stops me from doing what I want to do is learning my 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. How do I know how much fabric to buy? All of those things. But while we were having lunch today, we were talking about some of this, and we were talking about when we realized that we had the love of quilting or sewing in general, and what maybe started it in our life, and where we were at that time, and just my quick story was, as I grew up in a home with lots of girls, a sewing machine on my mom's table, a sewing machine on my grandmother's table. Sewing was always happening, so I was very immersed in it with just my everyday environment. But I worked at a little variety store where we got flat folds in, and it was, you'd get like a 1 7/8 or 2 1/4 or whatever, and they'd be different widths, and of course double knits or cottons or whatever. Yep. And when I saw that piece of fabric, I was like, what can I make? And I remember going to the back room of the little variety store. There was a phone on the wall with a little dial on it and a big black heavy phone, and I would pick it up and I'd dial my grandmother that just, lived in our same little town. And I would say, I have a double knit that's a 1 7/8 and it's this wide. What can I make? And she would know exactly what you could make, whether it was a shirt with a collar, a long sleeves, a skirt, a pair of slacks, whatever, what kind of waistband you could put on, or collar or whatever. And so she would say, do you want to come over tonight? She'd have supper on the ready, and we would eat, and then we would cut it out, and I would sew it up, and I would wear it to
With
school,
the
the next
next day.
day.
Yeah.
And that was when I really fell in love with sewing and being able to create and dream and do it on my own. And then my grandmother was very influential in me getting my first sewing machine, and then I could set it up on a little desk in my bedroom. I didn't have to share it with any of my sisters. I didn't, my mom wasn't saying to me, get it off the table, and all that. And so I had my own little corner. And so we talked about our first little sewing environment area. And mine, as just a young high school girl, I had an old school desk in my bedroom, and I could leave my sewing machine up. Now, of course, I had to go somewhere else to cut and,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. And then when I got my first home and I was sewing, I actually sewed on an ironing board. The ironing board, you could
You
make
could
it
make it
high
higher
or
or
low,
lower.
so I could
Yeah.
get it down to the exact height I wanted. I had a kitchen chair from an extra chair from our kitchen table, and I had it right there, and I just had a little corner, and I had a cutting table that had drop down arms, so it would get very small, and then when I needed it, I could
can
open
spread
the
it out.
arms up. So that was kind of how I got my love, and then kind of my first sewing spaces. So thinking about when you fell in love with quilting or sewing, and it became an everyday part or a consistent part of your life, and then your first little sewing areas, what did you have?
You want to go?
Sure.
Go
sure.
ahead.
I was in 4-H when I was in high school, and I sewed a lot of clothing and things like that. But I liked it, but it wasn't my passion. And then later on, I'd always wanted to try quilting, and I think at some point we're going to show our first quilts and things like that. You'll laugh at it, but I had no idea, and I tried to.
Yeah, we all have our first
Yeah,
quilt
we
that
always
we
have.
made, and so we're going to show it. Probably not
Not
today,
today.
No.
Not
but
today.
this week in our
Yes.
quilt talk.
Yeah.
So I found a adult education that had quilting, and so I went to that class and just fell in love with the technique and how they did things. Now, as you said, I worked in the laboratory, and everything was analytical, and everything was done this, that, and you measure it out and stuff like that. And so it was the perfect fit that quilting was
Your release.
my release to do that. So I enjoyed quilting, and I had the very first house we had, I had a little cubby hole that it's kind of shoved in there, and
You said it was kind of at the top of a
it
stairway.
was at the top of the stairs,
Yeah.
and it was on a slant, so I kind of have to walk
Yeah.
in like this and then sit down, and
Uh-huh.
and so
But it was your own.
it was my own, and I
and you
could,
didn't care.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We have to remember that we start where we are.
Right.
right,
We start
right.
where we are. You don't start with this $1 million
Totally.
sewing room.
right,
You know.
yeah,
That,
Yeah.
and you don't start with building a room above the garage.
Garage,
You know,
sure.
you start where you're at.
See, that's right.
And then you can progress on from there if you want to. And if
Right.
not,
That's right.
then
Then,
you're
yeah.
then you're
okay.
there.
Yeah.
But do it. Just
Yes.
no matter what, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up sewing. My mother sewed. I was a chunky little girl, and we would try to find me clothes. We could never find them, so we'd end up at the, 5 and dime. And like you said, finding flat fold fabrics and go home and make my clothes. So I learned how to make clothing and did various things. And then senior in high school, I had there was a new home economics teacher, and I took the class, and I really liked it because I had the knowledge. So I was a little bit more advanced than
Than
what
the
some
others.
of them, just
Yeah.
probably like you when you took. We could probably taught some of
Yes.
those kids, and we probably did.
Yeah.
So that kind of got me going into home economics instead of the accounting and secretarial works. So I did that, went to college, got married. When I got married, I think I had an extra bedroom. We lived in a mobile home. We had a little mobile home, and I think my sewing room was probably in the bedroom. My husband bought me my true first one. It was a Sears Kenmore sewing machine for Christmas. And that's what I sewed on for
And
a
he's
long
a keeper.
time.
He's the one
And
you
yeah,
still got.
He's the one I still
Yeah.
got for
Yeah.
almost 50
And,
years.
Yep,
Yes.
you'll celebrate.
It'll
50
be
years
what?
this year.
Yeah.
Yep, it's 49 years and 11 and a half months
Yeah.
or something like that
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Did you know you were getting a sewing machine?
I think I probably did.
I wondered if you had any input in what he bought.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No. My mom had a Sears Kenmore. So at that
He
time,
probably sought out her
that was in
advice.
the early
Yeah.
70s, and Sears Kenmore
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
Yeah.
was a
the
good machine.
Yeah.
That was my first one
Yeah.
too. I got it
Yeah.
as a graduation present, and
Yeah.
that was
So I got that, and I started sewing. You name it, I've sewn it. I mean, early 8, I sewed my kids' clothes, doll clothes, Barbie clothes,
Cabbage Patch.
Cabbage Patch dolls. I made the Cabbage Patch dolls because we couldn't find the
couldn't
Cabbage
get 'em.
Piles.
It was-
Yeah, to
they-
buy.
Yeah.
So I made the dolls, made the clothes, did all of that. In the early 80s, I worked at a stretch and sew shop, and they were doing a lot of garments and all of that. And that's where I was introduced to a serger, and they sold Pfaff sewing machines, or Pfaff sewing machines. And I was able to get another machine at that point. And that Pfaff lasted me for a long
I was going to
time.
say, I probably knew that machine.
Yes, I've had it.
It was a true love.
It was. It took me through when we moved to Tennessee. Then I went into the drapery business and
Yes.
did draperies and did all of that. So, there's not too many things that I have not tried to sew or make if it comes with any type of fabrics. I've put it
Yeah.
together some way,
And
somewhere,
that's
somehow.
really a talent to be able to work with all of those different fabrics
Right.
and all those different mediums that you did, from garments to curtains to everything, quilting
to knits
everything.
and to
upholstery
and
all that
now
stuff,
working with I do a little bit of clothing with knits and batiks and all of that, and jerseys and some rayons, and so I'm having to reteach myself a little bit on the different fabrics that's coming out. But when I met Kathy, she worked at a different shop in the late 90s, and we started hanging out together, and then that's where my passion for quilting really came into play.
Yeah, I think that's when
That's really when I was
And our kids
into
were older.
it. Our
They
kids were up and
high school
older,
or
and
No grandkids.
No,
so
yeah,
you were
yeah,
ready to
so
do something different.
right.
We-
Mine was in college, and,
Yep.
and I was working, letting them go, and so it was kind of, I went, it's my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my time to
Yep.
use my
Yeah.
education that I
Yeah.
paid for, and use my knowledge and the information they gave to me.
I
So
think that's when it became my passion. Was at that point when we got together.
when we kind of
and
got together and we
go to
started doing shows and
So
stuff
that
like
kind of
that,
leads
so-
us into the next thing is that you two met each other. You both had the desire to do some more sewing and to jump into the piecing and the quilting, and so it was like iron sharpens iron. You honed off of each other.
Yeah.
And so one of the questions on the Facebook page that people said they struggle with was getting their mojo, or they've lost their mojo, they've lost their desire. So here's one thing right here is to find a buddy.
Right,
Find
yeah,
a
that's
buddy.
true.
right.
Which is kind of hard in
Hard
the
in
environment
sometimes,
that
yeah.
we're in.
Yeah.
But that's
Right.
one reason why I do what I do, is to help you find a buddy and to help give you your mojo and to help teach you different things and just keep offering lots of things and lots of different things so that you can get that mojo and that desire
Right.
to jump in there and try something.
Right. You've
Yeah.
got to try new things. I'm always trying new
So
things.
you have a new thing. in your
Yes,
sewing
I
room.
have a new thing. I've started. I never thought I'd say this.
I
but,
know.
I bought a Gamble quilting machine, and it's a 12-foot table, so it's a classic. And I'm really beginning to love quilting.
To do the long
To
arm,
do the long arming, to do the machine quilting. I've always been a piecer. I've always just pieced because I didn't really have the time to really delve into it.
And within the past, 2 years
2
ago, you
years,
sold your
we
quilt
sold a
shop.
quilt shop.
And so now you have more time to do what you want
Really
to do.
love to do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you have 100 quilt tops
Yeah,
laying
That you
there
can,
yeah.
that you've made over the past many years, A lot of them, probably 25 or 30 of them, was made in the past year or so,
Yeah.
year and a half. So I purchased it, was able to get it from a friend locally, and so I can call her up. But I'm beginning to really enjoy it.
Loving it,
I'm
yeah.
starting to really get into it. The beginning, it was kind of, I don't know, because we all look at pictures and everything's perfect.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
Every
is
straight
gorgeous.
line is
Yeah.
perfect,
And
and
that's
it's
not
all
you.
this and all of that, and I'm
Yeah.
going, I can't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I can't make all that all even.
And sometimes
Yeah.
you don't want to. You
And-
want to
Yeah.
spend all that time
Yeah.
with it. You just only want to
But
get
you
to it so much.
start.
But
where
you've
you're
got to
at.
start. I
Somewhere.
started,
Mhm.
yeah. Kathy
Yeah.
always says start with practice things, and I'm going, that's a waste of my time. Give me a baby quilt
And
or
let's do it.
and
Yeah.
just do it
Yep.
on the machine.
Yep.
Practice all the different things on the machine, and then you can give it to someone that needs it.
Yep.
But it's a good practice, and I'm getting into individual blocks now, and so I'm kind of loving that because I get it all the different designs and how to do that. So I'm going into another phase of my
Good.
life and with
Yeah.
the quilting world.
Yeah.
So what about mojo? How do you keep your mojo, or how would you suggest someone to get their desire and their love and their mojo going?
Well, to get my mojo going, I have to make sure that my room is decent. It's I can't come into a cluttered room and work. I can't have piles of stuff on my cutting board and then
Yeah.
have to cut. I have to kind of clean up my room, and I can't say that when I finish one project that I put everything away. I don't. I just kind of wait until I'm ready to start something new, and then I go around and clean up and say, oh yeah, I remember where that is and stuff. So I have to make sure that my environment is in good shape so that I can go to my mat and cut, and I can go to my ironing board and iron, and I don't have distractions
Yeah.
in my way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. For me, and I know different personalities look at things differently, but for me, I need to have my environment in pretty good shape.
Pretty good shape. Yeah.
Not that I don't have,
There's days when you just kind
Right.
of toss it over
Yeah,
there.
I
and-
have stuff
yeah.
grouped in baskets or whatever, and they're stacked up under my table or whatever.
Right.
But stuff is still organized. It's not that you go in and you buy a bag of fabric somewhere and you throw it in the corner, and then you buy
Right.
another bag of
Right,
fabric
yeah.
and you throw it in the corner. It's not like that. It's organized and put in.
Sure.
And at lunch we were
Right.
talking about how you like your fabric all stacked up nice and neat so that you can see it.
I need to be able to see it. I can't have it behind closed doors
Yeah, or in a tub.
or in a tub,
And I know
especially
that
in
there
a
are
tub.
times that people need to do that. We're not
Right.
saying don't do it, but for
No.
our own individual
Right.
Yeah.
we need to
we
see
need
it.
to see
Whereas,
it.
and
Yeah.
this is what's so
And-
good about
yeah.
you and I, because you and I go to different ways. Like you
Right.
like to
I like
see
to-
everything.
right.
Well, I like it all behind
A door.
closed door. When I open it up, I do have bins that you can see through, and they're all labeled really nice, the same label and stuff, and it looks real nice. But
Yeah.
I like it closed
Shut.
up and shut, because I'm not as neat when I do
Sometimes
that.
when I can see something, it's pressure. It's pressure on me, like it's saying, you need to do me. You
Right.
need to finish
Right.
this. You need to, And
Right.
sometimes
And
that's
sometimes,
good.
yes.
And sometimes that
It's
bothers
not.
me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to put you out. I'll play with you later,
Yeah.
but right now I
Right.
don't need you talking to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
Because
true.
you're not saying nice things.
I know.
And
Can be
that's true, because if you have all your unfinished projects, it's out there glaring
Glaring
at
at
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got a little corner that's where all my projects are on a
Or-
shelves,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in little clear containers,
Uh-huh.
but I don't have to look at it directly.
Yeah.
It's kind of off to the side, so I don't have to look at it directly unless I need something over there.
So that kind of leads us into another question. Many people on here, on that messaging on that board, were talking about, how do I stay focused so I can finish this project? Because I'll start 2 or 3 more, and then I still have this project, there. And I understand that, maybe all of a sudden you've been invited to a baby shower or something, and you think, man,
Oh,
I gotta
God, I
get
gotta
this
get that
quilt
quilt
done.
done.
So you kind of push everything aside and you jump in there and do a baby quilt. And, those go in there. But I guess for me, I've always had multiple quilts going, and it's never applied pressure to me. I don't know why. I like having a, I may feel like sewing today, so I'll pull the quilt out that I'm sewing on.
Right.
I may have something that's a little bit more intense, and I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. I want to do something a little more simple, so I grab one of my projects I'm working on that's more simple. I always have a scrap quilt going. This is one that I finished probably about 2 years ago now. But it was, I knew what I was making, and every time I had scraps or whatever, everything was cut and put into a basket and in sequence for me to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Took me
Yeah.
about 18 months
Yeah.
Yeah.
of going through, but when I was maybe in between projects or didn't have the mental capacity to work on whatever it was,
Right.
but I wanted to be in my sewing room and I wanted to be working, then I would jump in on that because that was very simple and easy
Right.
for me to do. And then I have another scrap one I'm working on, Star Jingle. Some of you may know that one. And as I get some time where my brain doesn't have to think,
Right.
I can
right.
go in and work on that.
Right.
Well, because I'm the quilter
Yeah.
and the piecer, I like to do both. I have two machines. I
Excellent.
bought I've had my brother 1500 for years and years, and I absolutely love it. And then we were at a quilt shop in Knoxville, and there was my machine sitting there, and it was like, oh my God, is it for sale? And it was, and so I bought that. So I have two exactly the same, and I have one set up in my
Cabinet.
and it sits down in real nice, and then the other one I have a sew easy table that sits down in that. And so like if I want a piece at night, then I come over and sew on this one, and if I want a quilt, then I
Yes.
come over and sew on that one. But I have if I have like 10 minutes or 20 minutes, I might sit down and work on something. And as you
Yes.
say, it might not be the complicated one. It might just be the easier one. Oh, I'm working on 4 patches. Well, I'm just going to sew up some 4
You can do it
patches
without
I got
thinking.
yeah, I've got 10 minutes to do it and stuff like that. And so I'm always in stages of different projects. I do multiple
So
projects.
to me, when I have these projects going and I'm working on them as my brain and time allow me to me those are not pressuring me to get
No.
done because they're my works in progress.
Right.
But when you
Right.
have something that is giving you a problem, either you're not happy with your colors or maybe it's not going together the way you want it to or something, then you put it up. To me, those are the real problem children.
Right.
Those are the ones that you probably need to just give it to somebody else, trash it, or figure out how you can repurpose
Right.
that
Those fabrics.
And you not
I
too
do
long
that.
ago
Yeah.
you went through your boxes of your works in projects,
Yeah.
works in progress, and you said, "Oh, I'm never going to do
I'm
this.
never going to do
I'm
this.
never gonna
What?
do
I'm
this."
never going to do it.
So
So I
sometimes
bagged
you-
them up and I took them to the
Yeah.
local quilt
Quilt
shop
shop,
that
yeah.
we used to own. Took it into her and say, "Here, Ann, sell this
trying to
stuff."
do this.
These are now yours.
Yeah,
These are now
These
yours.
lovely things are yours.
You
But
know?
then you also said, okay, this fabric, I want to keep this particular fabric. So you
Right.
broke apart
Part
your
everything that was in there.
project.
Yeah.
and put it in where it
Where it
belonged.
needed to go into my color wall
Yeah.
for those, if I was using those fabrics,
So
I
it can have a
needed
new
it.
life.
So
Yeah.
I could have a new
Yeah.
life and they could make
Yeah.
new friends.
Right.
Yes.
But, or if you have just a few blocks you've started and it's just not going the way you want to, put those blocks someplace else. Turn them into placemats. Turn them into
Table
dog
runners
beds.
or whatever. Yeah. Really.
Make them into, add borders around it or strips around it. Turn it into a doll bed if you have granddaughters. My granddaughters loves the doll beds,
Yeah.
quilts, because they're small, they're tiny, they can wrap them up and do that. So, if there's something that's bugging the crud out of you,
Get rid of it.
get rid of it. Do
Exactly.
something
Get rid
with
of
it. Decide something
That might be what
that you're going to do, and that's what's pressuring you
mojo.
not to
Yeah,
do
not
the
to
other
finish it up.
ones,
Yeah.
or not to start on another one, or it's maybe the repetitiveness of that design. Maybe you have to make 20 blocks of that same design,
and it's boring.
and it's boring. So maybe cut it out and do, like Kathy, a little bit here, a little bit there. Okay, I'm just going to do all the option ones today in this one. Or
Yeah.
I'm going to do the flying geese in this, but have them cut while you're making another fun quilt that you really want to make,
Excited about.
you can make those and get them done before
yeah.
you know it. That
You've got
quilt
some
is
blocks
done.
done. Yeah.
And throw it together, even though it tells you to do a complicated putting it together. Don't, you know, you can change patterns. You can
mix it up.
deviate
It's okay.
from
Yeah.
what you
And
what
you
it
maybe
says.
thought this was going to be a queen size quilt, and all of a sudden it's turned
Oh my
into
God.
a doll quilt.
Yeah, I've got one of them.
Yeah.
A cathedral window. A long time ago, you make those cathedral windows.
Yep.
I was going to make a queen size quilt.
Yeah.
It's a pillow.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a
Yeah.
pillow.
Well, we always said we took a Paula Nadelstern
Oh yeah.
Stern class
Yeah.
on kaleidoscopes. That
Yeah.
was big back in early 2000.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we said we have a $400 pillow now.
It's not even
Yeah.
a pillow yet. Mine just.
Yeah,
sits
I think
there.
mine is just there too. I don't think it's a pillow, but it's a
Yeah.
$400.
Yeah, it was.
block.
It was a 4-day class we took, and all.
But
the
we knew
fabric
at that time that we didn't want to make any more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's just satisfying our desire of learning something.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And once we've learned it and we've done a little bit,
Right.
then it's time to move on.
And someone, and it could have been you or whomever, if you're taking a class, I try to use a particular type of fabric. Like I use usually Christmas fabric. So that if I make this block in Christmas fabric and then I go to another class, I make whatever they're doing in Christmas colors. And then when I get all done, I mean, I might have 12 blocks or whatever.
From 12 different
From
classes.
12 different classes, but it makes a pretty cool quilt.
Yeah,
So
I love that idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Because when you take classes, it's a learning technique.
Yeah.
You're learning.
You should be learning something.
You should be learning something. And it's not that you have to make that entire quilt. We give you all you need to do that quilt. It amazes me, you go to a class and you've got all this fabric and everybody yards and you
end up.
it would be nice to be able to buy that, and if you buy it, okay, but just start with one block. Don't cut everything for the entire quilt.
Yeah.
Do that one block.
Because you may not want to get back
You
to
may
it.
not like that technique.
Yeah. You may not like it.
And
then you're stuck.
And then you're stuck. So now you can at least use that fabric because you love that fabric because you bought it for that class. Use it in something else. You don't have to sew anything you don't like to do.
Yeah. Kathy, I know you've taught a lot of beginner classes. What do you feel like beginners struggle with?
Oh, the 1/4 inch seam.
Yeah.
We did talk a little bit about that. And
How did you help them?
I would take 2 pieces of fabric. I would strip them, probably 2 by 4 inch, 2 pieces, a light and a dark. And we would talk about putting your pieces together, right sides together, and then making sure that as you're going through the machine that you have both the top and the bottom together evenly and get it through the machine. And then I would have them press it open and we would measure, and it would have to be exact. And if it was exact, then you don't have to adjust your machine at all. But if you're finding that you're too big or too small, some people have a machine where the needle can move over, but some people don't have that. As a beginner, a lot of times they don't have those fancy machines that move over. So I have a tape. There is a tape, and if you
You
want
can
to
use any
just
painter's
any kind
tape.
of tape that you
Yeah.
want,
Yeah,
and
painter's
so
tape.
I would we would adjust the tape, and then I'd give them 2 pieces again, and they'd try that, and they would keep at it until they got the perfect 1/4 inch, and then we would proceed.
And like if you're used to driving your car, you know where everything is. You can drive and do the radio and all that, and you get comfortable with your sewing machine like that too. And so the more you're on it, the more you feel comfortable with it, and you know where that
Exactly
fabric
where it
has
is.
to go through. Whether it's a very inexpensive machine or whether it's a very fancy machine,
Right.
It's still user error.
It's experience.
Yeah.
You have to
Right.
experience where that is and repetitively come back to that.
Now, do you guys think that people should sew with a scant seam allowance?
It depends on how you view sewing your 1/4 inch. If your block comes out and you're sewing like a 1/4 inch and the block comes out perfect, then that's fine. But if you don't see that 1/4 inch correctly, then you need to do a scant 1/4 inch, and then do a little block to see what it measures out. I mean, I'm the precise one. It's that lab background that if it doesn't come out 3.5 by 3.5, then I have to look and see
Why?
what I've done that hasn't made it so.
Yeah.
And so I spend a little bit more time on getting my accuracy.
Well, when we were talking at lunch today, we talked about how, this 1/4 of an inch and why people struggle with it so much. And, we all agreed that, with just a little bit of paying attention, slowing down, thinking about what you're doing, especially in the beginning when you're learning.
Right.
They
Or
do like
you're
to go
learning the
fast.
machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so much of our work is done in strips.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you just see this long, straight,
And you
and
just
they just either
zoom.
lollygag around, not paying attention, or zip off like a jackrabbit.
Yeah.
And then,
You got to make sure
Yeah.
those edges are even, because if they're not even, then your seam allowance is going to be off. So you know.
yeah.
And you can't be holding back here and you've got to have your hands, I put my hands up just right in
Around
front of my
right, yeah,
needle
yeah.
and to kind of help guide that and stop periodically
And check
double
it.
check everything,
Yes.
go a little bit,
Stop
check
and
it,
look.
stop and
Yeah.
look. Your hands
Help.
are here
Yeah.
and they are
Yeah.
to help you to
Guide
control and
Yes.
to guide your fabrics.
Well, and learning how to handle your fabric, whether you're feeding it through the machine, whether you're cutting, whether you're pressing. We talk about our fabric as almost like it has human qualities
Right.
to it, personalities or characteristics, and that you can you say rub it the wrong way, it's not going to react the way you want
Right.
it to, or not handle it correctly or whatever, and learning to be able to feed that in with control, but
Right.
with just sensitive putting in.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
you
is
don't want
really
to
important.
pull it through.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And some fabrics react better than other fabrics.
Yes.
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 Yeah, it
But
does.
that's
even,
true.
Even yeah.
Any type of fabrics,
Yeah.
you've really got to kind of know your fabrics and what it's going to do. If it's good quality fabric, or if it's a little bit, if you've got your grandmother's or fabric from 50 years ago, that's not the same
React
as
different.
we're sewing
Right.
now.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
looser weave.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we've got some questions coming in that we can help with. I hope you're enjoying this and having a good time.
Let us know if
so.
you do.
Is anybody out there?
And if you're not, you're probably zoomed on to another Facebook page.
Questions.
There's a couple people from Franklin.
Yay! Hi, girls.
They're still the crazy duo.
Yeah, we're kind of subdued today. We've got a serious subject, so we have to be
Sure,
serious.
yeah, I know. Where's the best location on the quilt sandwich to begin the quilting design using a domestic sewing machine, mostly lap, full-size quilts? Center and work out, divide into quadrants.
Yeah, I like to work in the center and go out, because I am on a domestic machine and you're moving your fabric more, and so you want to get the center part done and then work your way out. So if it's blocks,
Stay smooth.
yeah, it'll stay smooth and pull it out. Start with the center block, and then the blocks around the center block, and just keep moving your way out, and that's the way to do it. Or if you've got an overall, same thing. I start in the center, kind of work my way out to a corner, then kind of back into the center, and then back out to the corner, and etc. So yes, on a domestic machine, you need to work in the center and work your way out.
So do you work across the center this way, and then you kind of work your way back going the other way?
Nothing like
No.
an arm, long arm.
No.
Oh, okay. So you
Because
just
that's how
kind of,
you would do it
that's how,
on your
yes.
new machine.
And not
You-
necessarily
go
even
back
in the
and
center.
forth.
I start at like the
Nope.
top, and
Nope.
I just
Yeah.
work my way to the
Yep.
other side.
No, because
so.
your rolls hold
yeah,
it.
it holds everything
Yeah,
in
holds it
place.
and it's not. I mean, I based mine really well and everything, but I still start in the center. I've always done that, because I'm
I would agree.
manipulating the quilt a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, you are.
I hope that
really
answers.
are.
Well, and when it's 3 layers in that sandwich and you're holding on to it, moving it around,
Yep.
at
It's-
different times your fingers on the bottom are going to have more pressure, and pulling your hands on top could have less or more pressure or pulling. So those 3 layers could be shifting,
Right.
And
little
so
bit.
You don't want
Yes.
them to, but
right,
yes,
you don't want
yes.
them to, and depending on how you have it basted and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how big it is. And,
Right,
Right.
yeah, you know, the
Yeah.
bigger the quilt, the harder it
Yeah.
is to manipulate through.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
A question that I've gotten a lot on machine quilting is that when you sit down to work at your home machine, you know, you have all this, you know, you're using your shoulders and your
Sure,
arms and stuff.
sure.
How long do you sit there, you know, to
Um,
sew?
I would say 40 minutes or so, and then I'll
Take a
get up
break.
and take a break and move around a bit, and then go back to it. Because I've been doing it for so long, sometimes I'll want to get it done, and I'll push
Yeah.
myself. But you know, after a while, your shoulders do
Yeah.
get tired and stuff. But it's so funny when I've got a big quilt, and you know, sometimes I'm like using my whole
I always felt like
arm
it was
to
a
do it. I'm
python,
like,
you
yeah,
know,
I'm like,
just-
you know, manipulating it with
Yeah.
not only just my fingers, I'm moving it with my
Yeah.
arm and everything.
Yeah.
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 Another question?
Okay.
How do you choose the perfect machine for your needs? I have a brother
course.
CS6000, but I want either a Janome or Bernina.
Well, I think for me the best thing is to go somewhere where you can see the different machines and actually compare this apple to this orange and this pineapple,
Right.
because you know they are different. You need to think about how strong it is the feed dogs are on pulling the
So
fabric
try it
through.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sit
try
down
it
and
out.
sew
You have to
it
try it out.
then.
And quilt shows are a great
Quilt shows
place
are a
to
great
Right,
place.
to do it
Right.
because all of the sewing dealers are
Are
there.
there.
And if you're doing something, you know, like if you're trying to do machine quilting, well, then I would definitely take a square with me
Take a
myself,
sampler
and
with
then
you, yes.
yeah, and even so, if you're piecing, if you wanted to bring, you know, fabric to try out on the machines, because
Right.
otherwise you're
Depending on what you're making, you know, if you're working with a lot of upholstery or denim, you know, take those to see if that machine is going to
Can
feed
handle
it
it.
through
Right.
properly.
gonna right.
And, you know, just feel the test. Do a spreadsheet. You know,
This
you-
one have
this
rate
one
this
has
one,
this
rate
one,
that.
this one has this stuff, this one has this stuff. Do your whole spreadsheet. You know, I
You're-
guess I'm in love with
You're
my
a
one
fop.
quilt or
You're-
with my one.
You're a Foth girl.
Yeah.
I'm a Bernina girl.
And
Yeah.
I'm a brother, and,
And
it
you're a
just
brother.
depends on what you get
Well,
used to. The
and I
things that I
know-
do require, though, is like I want my feed dogs to be able to go down.
Yes.
I want a needle down, and other than that,
I was
what,
gonna
what
say
is it
that
that you require?
There was I always thought there was 5 things I wanted when I looked at a machine, and I wanted the feed dogs to go down. I wanted the automatic needle down. I wanted that blanket stitch.
oh yes,
Right, a good
yeah.
blanket
I wanted
stitch,
a
yes.
good blanket stitch, and now I don't remember what the other 2 were. I know I want one that can be able to pull my fabric. I don't want to have to
pull it,
hold
yeah,
my fabric
yeah.
behind and my fabric in front and pull it
Right.
through.
See, that's why I like my fob
you're
because
so-
it has a built-in differential foot.
Feed, yeah.
It has that dual foot in there, and I don't have to worry about my fabric scooting. No, nothing. It's like 2 feed dogs pulling it
Yeah.
together. And I have sewn draperies, I've sewn canvas, I've sewn bags, I've sewn everything on
That
my
machine.
on those
Right.
machines.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And I do know that Janome has a lot of great machines. Just because we don't own a Janome doesn't mean that
Yeah.
they're not great.
No.
They're in a lot of classes, and it's just kind of like what you get started
yeah.
with,
right.
and you either loved it or you didn't,
Right.
Yeah.
and you ventured on to something
Yeah.
else.
right.
And some people have top bobbin loaders, you
Yes.
know, and
Right.
so that's what
Yeah.
they want is a one that has the top
Yeah.
bobbin
Yeah.
loader as compared to the one that.
But look
that's
at
on the
what you've got now. Okay.
What you
what
like or
is
what
there that you
don't
don't
like.
like on the one you have now? Why is it you don't like that one? See, what is it? And then go to one of the other ones. But we also like to deal with our local dealers.
Yes.
Yes, you need
Oh,
someone
definitely.
that has something there. If if you were thinking that you wanted a Janome, but there's no Janome
Janome
dealer,
Yeah.
Yeah, you
then
might
don't
not want
buy
to get
a
one.
Janome.
Because if you
Yeah.
run into problems or if you buy it off the internet or
if you have
Amazon or
questions
whatever,
on how to use
there's
it
nobody
or-
there
To help you.
to help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, no matter what the brand is, you know, there's the walking foot that you can always put on your machine and it can always stay on there permanently if you wanted it to. So you really, you know, I go to your local people, see what they
Yeah,
have
see
and
what
what
they
they
have
can
too.
do for
Yes.
you. and tell them what you are wanting.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be
Get it,
afraid
go
to-
sit
And
down
walk
and-
away. Don't
yeah.
say,
Yeah.
don't let them pressure you into
Yeah.
buying
Yeah.
something,
that
that
you may not
you
need.
may not want. You
Yeah.
know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah. Well,
other
and
things out there that I just don't
Yeah.
need on a machine, so I
Yeah.
didn't buy that.
we were also talking at lunch about how many times people start sewing and they don't buy a quality machine. It doesn't, it's not, and we talked about how it wasn't setting them up for success, and they decide, oh, either I can't sew or I don't like it. When it's not them, it's the machine that's giving you trouble. My first machine was a great machine, but I thought there were some things I couldn't do, and it wasn't me, it was the machine. And then my second machine, kind of some of the same things. And then my third machine was a Bernina, and all of a sudden I realized it's not me. I haven't had the machines that could do what I was wanting to do. So I would say that to buy the best machine you can afford. Yeah. And then if you need to progress up, then do so.
And that doesn't mean that you have to have all the fancy bells
Fancy
and
bells and
whistles.
whistles.
No, because a lot of that stuff that's
I've
on there, we
I've
never
never used any of the fancy.
We never
fancies.
use.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, another question?
Well, somebody commented about that they had a project that they trashed it, and they had the headache that's gone now.
Yeah.
Good.
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 And I don't think that they should worry about, oh my gosh, I've spent $50 on this fabric and now it's in the trash. No, you were learning something. You learned something. Just count that as $50 of education.
That's
You know,
right.
you learned whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know.
And
you
usually
didn't
you
like
don't
it.
trash it. You just take it to your somebody else.
Yeah,
take it to your quilt guild, and somebody will scoop it up real
Yeah.
fast
Yeah.
and stuff.
And they'll come back with something beautiful and you'll
And
say,
you'll go,
oh,
"Whoa,
my gosh,
yeah,
Yeah. But that's good for you. I'm glad
Good.
to you've got to release it.
Yeah.
And it's just not into her sewing. I've been married 50 years, as we talked about before. 50 years of gathering stuff. Right now I'm in the process of photos. You know how many photos you could have taken, and a bunch of them I don't even have because they're all on digital.
Yeah.
The past probably 10 years are on digital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've got all these photos. Why do I still need to keep photos of giraffes and elephants from the zoo?
Flowers
And flowers.
and rock arrangements.
So, I'm trying to let this go and trying just to keep the best that I can to pass on. So,
Yeah.
it's just not in your sewing room. You've got to get the rest of your house going too to get yourself
sewing room done
going
first,
and
though.
Well,
and
that
keep
could
you
be what's
going.
messing up your mojo.
Well,
That
that's
you've
true.
got all this other stuff that you need
that's
to do.
piling up.
So
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
a list and
Yeah.
check
And
it
start
twice.
on it.
Make a list, check it twice.
Check it
set
twice.
aside, and
Yep.
hand me your sewing machine.
That's right.
All right, Steve, another question?
Just a couple comments. The pattern behind you is the Americana.
Yes,
Oh,
this-
somebody mentioned that.
Yeah.
It is the
That
Americana.
it comes in several sizes.
Yes, this is the Americana Quilt, and we've had it for a long time. It's one of our most famous and favorite patterns. The pattern, when you purchase it, it starts out with the 3-inch star like this, and then it gives you the 4-inch, the 5, the 6, the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12-inch. So it's a great pattern to get all those different sizes of stars. And we've done it in organized fabric patterns. This one's scrappy and little. I was just going to make a little quilt for a sample in the booth, but I fell in love with it. And of course I had scraps and they were pretty little. And I thought, I want a big quilt. So I just kept working on it. And it's queen size. It's But now remember, when you do small like this, you have a lot of seams because the seams are
Right.
closer together.
Right.
So this quilt is very heavy because you have your fabric on top,
And
you
then
have
you've
your
got
seams underneath, which is almost solid, then your batting, and then of course your backing. So it's a
Yes.
very heavy,
Yeah.
heavy quilt.
Heavy quilt.
Yeah. Well, in that you can use a really thin batting,
Yes. Yeah.
to put in between, or
Yeah.
flannel, or
Or
you know,
piece of
whatever.
flannel and
yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
I started using the sew strip after each piecing, and it makes a huge difference in sewing.
The strip stick.
Is that the?
No,
The sew-
the
the leaders
little
and
runner.
runners, the
Yeah.
runners.
Oh yeah.
Runners, yes.
those
So
leaves, yeah,
something that we teach, and
Yes.
my grandmother did it, and I learned so much from her. I just did it, and so you're sewing, whether you're doing collars or sleeves or pieces for your quilt. And when you're done, you don't just take everything out. You put a little scrap of fabric in there. And sometimes you have projects going like this, that this could be your start and your stop piece.
That's what I do all the time.
Yeah, and so you're actually working on a quilt as you're working on the
On a
quilt.
quilt, yeah.
But anyway, the main point is that don't ever leave your machine empty. If you leave your machine in a sewing mode, your machine is going to behave. I always tell my students in class that when you get on an airplane, what is the most dangerous time? It's takeoff and landing. So when you're sewing, what's the time that your fabric is going to get balled up, your thread's going to get balled up, your machine's going to act up? It's at the start and stop. So if you're always starting and stopping, you're going to have more problems. But if you keep that little extra piece of fabric running in there, I always called it a runner because I just ran it in there.
Right.
Right.
Then your machine, it's like you're tricking your machine and thinking that it is sewing all
Going
the
to sew
time,
again,
Right.
yeah.
and it behaves much
Right.
better.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I do that all the time, or
It's
I
a
have
game changer.
scraps or pieces, or if you want to sew 5-inch squares together, I have a
Yes.
stack of those, and I'll just
Right next
sew
to
them
your
together
machine
right
is-
next to my machine, and before I know it, I've got a
Another
little
project,
baby
yeah.
quilt
Got
done.
another
and
project to finish.
It's finished, yeah, but it's done.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
try to do that on, and especially those projects I haven't worked on for a long time. I'll go back. Okay, what I
Get it
really kind of
prepped.
want to do them, get them prepped, see what I need to do, get that one little section ready, and do it as my
Yeah, have it there
starters
by
and
your
stuff. Yep,
machine and
have
just
it in starters and
Get
stoppers.
it in there.
Yep. And you can have it done in no time flat.
Okay. So we
Somebody
have.
was mentioning that pets don't care about the quilts if it's ugly or not.
That's right.
Let me see
So
if I can.
That's true.
this pet is sleeping in a dole box
Yeah.
here in the film studio.
Yeah.
There's a quilt up behind her, though. Maybe you can show, and that's Paisley. And there's the one of the.
Quilt.
That's the
Jingle
Jingle Jangle
Yeah.
and the Star Jingle there,
I love those. Those are really
sitting
cute.
over their
I
way.
really like them.
Yeah, pets don't care what they sleep on. They just want
No.
that love.
Right.
That love.
Right.
And you know, little kids don't. And you want them to be able to have a quilt that they can drag behind their little red
That's
wagon.
right. Yeah.
Or it could fly halfway out the car door, you
Right.
know, in a snowstorm. And
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
They don't care what it is.
Another
It was
question?
made by Grammy or
That's
by
right.
Grandma.
Yeah.
And they love it.
Yep.
Just a comment. My mother always used flannel for batting.
Yeah.
yes,
And that's
a lot of
perfectly.
flannel for
I think we
batting,
do that too.
especially back in the day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. If there's somebody that wants to learn more about the shortcut binding tool,
Of course.
Okay.
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 we don't have to do that today.
No.
Right.
I think we did.
We'll probably do
Yes.
that.
We had
yeah.
a request to show those ends.
Ends,
Oh,
putting
how
the
to do
ends
the ends
together.
together.
Finish.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, when you finish, we
And you do
that.
have video. You have several videos.
We have
on the
several
shortcut
videos, yeah.
binding
But since
tool,
you were here in person,
Yes,
We can do
we
your
can do that.
personal. We can do
Okay.
that. Maybe we can
Okay.
do that before our next quilt talk. Or
do you have to prep something,
um.
or did you bring something?
Actually, I have a quilt that needs binding.
Do you?
Oh my goodness! Isn't that just
Go figure.
what a yeah?
Why,
Go figure.
why would you bring a quilt that needed binding? Thinking Kay might be able to do this.
She's not doing anything while she's
No,
here.
not me. I wouldn't think that.
Yeah.
Okay.
sure.
Any more questions before we?
What size are the stars in the jingle? Do you know?
The stars are 5-inch stars, and so
5 inch.
I went to my Americana pattern. I looked at my sizing from my 5-inch star, and that was where I started. Was with
Okay.
that. Now when you put it inside that option 16 and it starts doing the jingle and the jangle, then it turns into I think about a 7-inch star. But it's a 7-inch block, but it's a 5-inch star.
You started
Yeah.
out with
And I
the
know the
scrappy.
9 patch is a 5-inch.
Mhm.
9 patch on there. And you can go back to some of the May webinars, sign up with your email if you haven't on the website, squareandasquare.com. Go in there and sign up for the newsletter. And you can go in there and watch the webinars that we've had from January till now. And I think May was when we did the Jingle Jangle and the star. So, and we're going to do some more with that star as I'm in progress of working on it. Made some pretty good progress, but okay. Any more questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, buying fabric.
How much
So,
fabric
How
should I
do
buy?
yeah? My shop is having a sale.
Yeah.
How much fabric do I buy? What do you buy?
As a quilt shop owner, I would say buy as much as you want.
Afford.
But okay, so if I see something that I really, really like, oh my God, she's taking the whole bolt, the whole roll.
So is this what you're going to buy, Kay?
That's what I'm going to buy.
That is 60 yards.
60 yards there.
60 yards of fabric, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we could do a lot of quilts for those 60 yards, couldn't
really.
We could.
Really.
we? We sure
Yeah.
could.
And with that new eagle vine, some great quilts of valor
That's
coming
right.
out of there.
Yep.
And that little eagle head is great for a 2.5-inch cut, fussy cut.
Yes,
Ooh.
yes. I remember
Yes.
you saying that in
Yeah.
one of your things.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a great-
Okay, so,
So,
if I'm a regular
yeah, if you can't
person,
buy the whole bolt, then we'll continue talking about.
Yeah.
I usually like to buy 2 to 3 yards for the borders.
And we're talking about like a full-size quilt.
Yeah.
Is what we're
Yeah.
talking about in
Yep.
sizing, because that has a lot to do.
That does. And as far as background goes, I like 4 or 5 yards of background because as a quilter, I like to have those empty areas
Open spaces.
to quilt on. So if I'm buying background in particular, I will splurge on backgrounds because I really like that. So
Yeah, we'd probably buy a whole bolt of that.
yeah.
And
I mean, you know, if I
our
was you,
tattered and
yeah,
torns.
I
yeah,
love
if you're
that.
tattered and torn, I
Well,
love that.
For people that have been with us for a while, they know that when our new fabric comes in, these are all of my own designs, and that when the new fabric comes in, that's when we have our promotion and sale,
Right.
that you can get it at a discount. And I always say buy as much as you can of it then, because it's not going to go on sale again.
Right.
And so with those tattered and torns, when we had those, I think that was March, was when we had our new shipment of those, and we were doing the promotion to do the fabric. I'm like, really, 10 yards is not
No.
too much to buy of any of
No.
these. The red, the blue, the 2 lights,
Yep.
the black.
No.
It was not too much. And we had a lot that did buy the 10 yards of it.
Yeah.
Somebody says, when in doubt, 5 yards.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
right.
speaking my language. yeah.
Okay, so anything else about buying fabric that you want to tell us?
If I'm buying a collection, I like to buy, I will match the border, you know, like if there's a lot of floral, like we talked about,
Right.
a lot of colors in the floral, then I will buy fat quarters if there's a lot of fat quarters to buy, or half yard pieces to do a queen size quilt if I can.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
Yeah, same here. You know, it just kind of speaks to me. And sometimes, you know, since we own a quilt shop, I know what it is for that quilt owner. If I go to a show and I have friends there at the show that I buy from,
Yes,
you know,
from other
I
vendors.
buy from my vendors that I know that
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah.
You know, I may buy a big fat quarter bundle or something that will go with what I have at home.
Right.
And so, you know, a lot of times I may not be looking for that big floral print
Oh, that's
or
true,
whatever.
yes.
But I just like to buy from the people that I know that I can keep them in business.
Yep, your
And
local
always
quilt
be
shop.
sure to, you know, buy at your local quilt shop if you can too, because if they're not there and you need help,
Yeah.
If
You're
you're not
sorry.
supporting
Where
them,
and
then
when is the
Yeah.
next opportunity.
right,
to get
right.
it.
Yeah.
And you know, and with Jodi's fabrics here, I mean, she's got them, and just buy what you can. I mean, they're beautiful fabrics.
and
They're
everything
beautiful.
goes together. One
Yeah,
line and
one
another
line
line
goes
and-
with the next
Yeah,
one.
any of the
Yeah.
fabrics that you've ever got from me over the years all go
Yeah.
together and blend nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kay, what about you buying fabric? What quantities? Tell us about, like, if it's a border print, I do this.
Well, if it's a
background.
border print, I usually buy 3 yards because that's going to do my borders and probably my binding.
And you would even have some left for your
And then
blocks.
for my
or
blocks.
sashing or
Yes.
something to help
Pull
organize
it in. Yes, yes. And other than that, probably a half yard. And if I really kind of like the fabric, I'd probably do a yard. You know, fat quarters are okay. Just kind of depends on how well I really like that fabric, and if I really like it, a half yard minimum.
Yeah,
Because you can't really do much with a fat quarter.
yeah.
You know, unless you're doing a lot of sampler quilts and blocks and things.
Well, and the
So-
other thing is when you're buying fabric, you have to think about, do I make quilts that have a lot of different fabrics in them? If you
Right.
do,
Right.
then you can
Then-
do the smaller quantities,
Right.
half
But
yards
if you
or
don't-
half quarters. But if you make a quilt that only has 2 to 5 different fabrics in
Fabrics.
it, You know, and to me, over the years, from my very first quilt shop that I owned till now, when I look at fabric that I've gotten bundled together for a certain quilt, and I've got my yardages figured out, I know that if I'm making like a full size quilt, if I don't have 12 yards of fabric,
Right.
and people
Total.
think 12 yards, that's a lot.
No,
for a
But it
it
full
isn't
is.
when
size
you
It
quilt.
isn't.
develop.
But
yeah.
if you don't have 12 yards of fabric there, you're going to run out of something.
Right. Right.
You're going to run out of something.
Absolutely.
You don't have enough.
Right.
So whether it's 3 fabrics and
Or-
you have 4 yards, 4 yards, 4
4
yards,
Right.
or whether you have 20 fabrics, you know,
Right.
or 24 fabrics, then you can do half yards.
That's right.
But when you were talking, you said that you like to kind of start with a print that will be a border, and that's kind of where you start
Right.
with a quilt. Or when you're out buying fabric, you have a fabric that's just gorgeous, and
Yeah.
You
you're
just
like,
love it.
oh my gosh, I
Yeah,
love
I got
that.
it.
And you know, most likely for you, it's going to be a border print.
Right.
And if you buy 3 yards, we talked about how you could use it in other places. But something we didn't say is that in that big, I'm going to say big print, but in that beautiful print, do you want to piece that for a border?
Right.
Oh yeah.
And so if
Right.
you
So
have
if you
3
yards,
yards,
you're
you
good
can get
to
your
go.
you
length.
have
Yes.
108 inches.
Which you
Right.
need to cut first.
And then you need to
Yes.
also check to see, is it directional?
Yes.
Is
Oh,
that
that's
fabric
true.
directional?
Yeah.
Because if it's going across this way,
It's going to have to
You're
go
gonna
selvage to selvage. to
yes,
other.
and then you've got to piece and match. You know, I guess I'm, you know, if it will match, if I can definitely see that, you know, it's got to match all the way across, then I have to match somewhere on that border to make sure
Yeah.
everything matches so it looks like it's one
Yeah.
big piece.
Are you going to be able to match that
Yeah.
beautiful cabbage rose
Right.
or that bird's tail
Right.
or
Right.
those paisleys, you know, the way they are?
And you
gonna
have
be
to
able
kind of
match
see
them?
what that repeat is. If it's a 9-inch repeat, you know, you're going to have a good little bit of yardage. If it's a 9-inch repeat, you've got to have at least 8 repeats. Yeah, at least 8 repeats. That
To
will
be
give
able
you
to do
80
that.
inches.
Yeah.
So 8 repeats, 8 times 9 is 72.
2 yards of
2
fabric.
yards of fabric. So you've got to kind of look at the design of the fabric and
How
what
you're
it's
gonna use
how
it.
you're going to use it. And you know, do you want is it a stripe? Do you want the stripes laying down this way, going up and down vertical, or do you want them going horizontal, or does the sides go up and down or vertical?
Oh, so many questions.
Yeah, there is, but you have to kind of look at that design of that piece of fabric a lot of times.
So any
And
other
like the lady said, when in doubt, 5 yards.
yeah. Especially if it's a good sale.
If it's a good sale
Yeah,
or
Why
whatever,
not?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a 5-yard piece you can always use for a backing,
Big-
most likely
yes,
too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any other tips on buying fabric when you don't know what you're doing with it?
Just buy what you like.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
if you're in love with it, then just go
Yeah.
ahead and buy it.
Buy
it.
That, and then
And
it's your
do it.
decision as to how much you're going to buy.
Yeah.
And maybe it's your wallet that decides how much you're going to
Yeah.
have.
When I buy fabric, of course, I think about that bigger piece that could be used for a binding. I mean, for a border, and I usually want to get the 3 yards because I don't want to piece it, and that gives me
Sure.
108 inches. And if for some reason your quilt is bigger than 108, like a king, then you better add another yard because you're going
Right.
to have to cut that a different direction. Selvage to selvage when you cut the other lengthwise, and so
Right.
so yeah, depending on how big that quilt is, 3 to 5 yards on that for a border,
Right.
and then that gives you plenty for to go into your sashing and into your blocks, which is always nice to be able to group all that in together. And
Right.
for backgrounds, and we're talking like full size quilts. So if you're going bigger, you know, then you're gonna have to think more. But for background, I really think a minimum is 5 yards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it kind of sometimes I'm get in a mode to where I like a lot of background.
Sure.
You know, like you. To me, that's very 30s and old, and I like that.
Right.
And then other times it's not so much. So when I go to my stash to look at my backgrounds, I look to see how much I have,
Right.
and then is that pattern one that dictates a lot of background or not?
Right.
Not.
Right.
So
and the other thing is
that's
too,
important.
you can buy 5 yards of 5 different backgrounds. You know, because that adds a little interest
Yes.
to your.
And then that was
quilts.
going to be the other, the 5 yards of the background. And
Yeah.
then when I'm looking at little prints or other things that are just good, basic stash pieces, I usually buy a yard to 2 yards.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3, just depending on if I've been looking for something that fills that in and I have not been able to find it, the color
Right.
or the shape of the print or whatever, then I'm like, I've been looking for that a long time, and
I'm
so,
getting
Yeah,
five.
I'm getting,
I'm getting more.
I'm getting
Right.
more. Yeah.
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 Right.
So hopefully that answered your question.
Okay. And then I think probably besides the seam allowances, I think the other thing that people really struggle with is choosing fabric. You know, they don't know how to choose the fabrics to go together. And I talk about this a lot in my webinars, and I'll tell you guys what I think, and then if you have any bits and
Okay.
pieces to throw in there, we'll let you do that. But to me, there are two different we're talking about colors. So to me, there's two different families of fabric. There's the dusty colors, and then there's the clear colors. So to me, I don't put a clear color with a dusty.
No.
And I don't put a dusty with a clear. Long necks don't play with three horns. They
Right.
just don't.
Okay.
Okay? You never watched
Long necks don't play with three horns.
Yeah, from the old movie when your kids were little, that Land Before Time with the little dinosaurs.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no
I have
clue.
no
I mean,
clue.
I kind of remember that, but
Well,
I
the
don't.
little Ceratop mom told the little Ceratop baby, long necks don't play with three horns.
Okay.
Oh,
Now
okay.
it. Now
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Dinosaur.
okay.
Dinosaur
Dinosaur,
next. Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Got
Yeah.
it. Thanks.
So-
Okay. Sorry. We digress.
Dusty colors don't work well with clear colors. Clear colors don't work well with dusty. It's the hue of the colors that don't go together.
Right.
They just don't. If you put them together, you wind up having to tea dye, or a certain area pops out
Uh-huh.
Right.
that others
Yeah.
don't. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
to me, you don't put those two together. So that's the first thing you do, is you separate your fabrics into the dusty colors and the clear. So whichever one you decide to work with, then you look at you want contrast in your colors. So depending on what, let's say that we're going to do a star, you want that star to jump out. So you want a good contrast of what the star is being sewn next to, whether it's a
Yeah.
background
Yep.
or a secondary design or whatever. You've got to have that contrast, or that star goes
Just
away.
fade away.
And there's no sense in spending all that time making that beautiful star
Right.
if you're not going to see it.
Right.
So to me, the first thing is learn the dusty colors, learn the clear colors. And then the next thing is look at contrast and what do you want to show up?
Right.
Because
Right.
it's where you have that contrast. So if you look down here at the table here, this is our new quilt called Love of Country. We're going to start teaching it in September. We're going to have kits for it, and you can sign up for the classes and everything. So right now what you need to do is go to the website, and it's called For Love of Country, and it's a waiting list. So you don't have to put any money down. You're not signing up in blood. You can change your mind, but this gives us an idea of how to plan, because we're working on kits now. We'll be shipping them within 2 weeks, and hopefully in our next Quilt Talk this week, we're going to give you a way to sign up for Quilt Club Week, and we're going to give you a way to start ordering your kits. And so and we'll give you all the details on those as we go along. But I want you to look at the blocks and look at the contrast. So, you know, this is the bear paw block. So look at the contrast so that the bear paw jumps out. You know, looking at this one, you want all these beautiful little triangles on the flying geese. You want them to jump out. So if you don't have a good contrast, you're doing all of this work.
For-
And it's not going to show
And
up.
it's not going to show up.
Right.
You know, I've got some quilts that are really muted, and it's what I wanted.
Right.
But
Right.
that's not always what you want.
Right.
And so
Right.
you really have to pay attention. Now, I want you to look at this little gold one right here. See, this little gold one doesn't have that much of a contrast in there. So you don't necessarily want a lot of gold, but you can sneak one in there.
once in a
You know,
while.
every
Yeah.
once in a
Yeah.
while you can sneak that
Yeah.
in there, and it works and it plays well. So this one is our Love of Country. It's got a couple of applique blocks in it, I think 4. It'll be somewhere around 11 classes every Monday starting in September. And we'll have kits on the website you can purchase, and even a little applique kit that has your your black bias edge is here already made up, your needles, your thread colors, and all that. So look for your needle
Yeah.
threader.
Oh, wow,
great.
that's nice.
So we'll
Yeah.
have that little applique kit for those that don't have anything.
haven't started, yes.
and
An applique
wanna
is
get
so much
going.
fun.
Yeah. Now this one right here is a great block to look at. Let's look at it because it has a lot of colors in it. but it works because of the contrast.
Yes.
So the main thing that we wanted on this, there was two main things of this block. The white star,
Yep.
and notice how on every side of that white you have good contrast.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that makes the white star pop
Sure.
out.
Yep.
And then the next thing we wanted were these red,
Red
corners.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted the white star and the red corners to pop out. And then the blue and the green are kind of in that same color wheel, but they have enough contrast. You get the beauty of those
Right.
colors
Right.
and those
Right.
fabrics jumping out.
Right. You know, for those people that don't have any color sense and don't believe in themselves having the color sense, we used to, as a service at our quilt shop, is we would put things together, and you know, you bring over bolts and you ask,
You audition.
you audition,
Audition.
and then you ask the customer,
What do you like?
which ones do you like, and we'll pull other ones and things like that. So to be helpful, you can go to your local quilt shop and test drive your fabrics, and if you don't feel confident in putting your own fabrics together,
They'll help
get
you.
them. Yeah, they'll help you, and put
And
it
that's
together.
one reason why people like kits is they see
Right.
that
Yes.
quilt
Kits and
Yes.
and they want it just
Yes.
like that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you
And
know,
that's
we've
nothing
got
wrong with
tons of
that.
kit,
Yeah.
kits on our
Yes.
website for those
Yes.
that want to do it
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And that's a great way. I've done a lot of kits.
Yeah, I've done.
I mean, we always kitted kits
Yeah. Yeah.
because I want it just like that one. There's no
Yep.
deviation. I
Yep.
want it
That
exactly
size,
like
yeah.
that and that
Yeah.
size
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
I must admit that I don't feel real confident in my colors when I'm picking it out for myself. But in
well,
the
that's
shop,
true. Yeah,
in the
you're
when-
good at
in the
that.
shop, I say, "Oh yeah, you need this, you need this, you need this," and when it gets to mine, it's like, "Oh,
What do I
I don't
do?"
know what
Well,
I'm on."
we're more critical
Yeah.
of
I
our
guess
own.
we are. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of our,
Yeah.
what we want. So,
That's
yeah.
great.
No.
Well, I'm going to tell you a few things and then we're going to bring our quilt talk to a close. But I want you to know that while Kay and Kathy are here this week, we are doing filming for our Quilt Club Week, which will be December 1 through 4. And we're going to be showing you and telling you more about Quilt Club Week as we continue with our quilt talk. We'll have another one tomorrow, so make sure that you stay tuned and that you know about it. And the best way to know about everything that we do is to go to our website, squareinaSquare.com, and you sign up for our newsletter list with your email, and then we'll send you emails that let you know when we're doing something like this, or we're doing a class or a webinar, so that you won't miss anything and that you'll be prepared for the different things that we're offering video wise, and you'll know about all the classes that we're doing. We're going to be talking more about Premium Club as we have Quilt Talk this week. We're going to be talking more about the Quilt Club Week, which is December 1 through 4. We're going to tell you how you can sign up for Quilt Club Week 2020 that we did last year. For those of you that didn't know about it or weren't able to take it for whatever reason, we're going to offer it to you again, and you'll have a way that you can sign up
If you
for
want
it.
to take it again.
Or you want to take it again. But if you're a Premium Club member, remember, if you're a Premium Club member, everything is in that subscription and with that website of the Premium Club, and you don't have to sign up. Everything is already in there. It's already offered to you, and it's part of the subscription. So
And it stays there, right? I mean,
yeah,
they can
yeah.
go back. You can go
Yeah.
back and
as long as you, it's just like Netflix. As long as you have a subscription
Sure.
for it,
Yep.
you can go back
Sure.
in and watch as many times as you want.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
so
I think that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
who else has that?
yeah. And one of the other things that I love about Quilt Club Week or Premium Club is that when you take the class at your own sewing machine
Right.
when you're ready to do it, and maybe it's a class I taught 2 years ago, but you're just now decided you want to do
this
it.
is what you want to
You
do.
know what?
Yeah.
Your teacher is still here. You can text me, you can email me, you can ask me, what do
That's
I
right.
do?
2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
How'd
Your
you do this?
teacher is still there.
There.
And when you take
A
other
class.
classes, other places, when that 6 hours or 3 hours is over, that teacher
That's-
evaporates and there's
She's gone.
nothing there
That's right.
left.
Yep.
And I also love being able to work in your own environment with your own machine
Right.
and your own tools and all of that. You don't have to lug stuff everywhere.
Right.
So anyway, we're going to tell you how you can sign up for Quilt Club Week 2020, how you can sign up for future Quilt Club Week and know about it, how you can sign up for Premium Club and not miss anything. It's just going to be in there
It'll
all
all
the
be there.
time.
Yeah.
And then we're going to tell you a little bit more about what Kay and Kathy are teaching during Quilt Club Week 2021. And
You'll be
we
so
we
excited.
did some filming today, and it was great. We'll talk about some of those. So
We kind of got a mojo going, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
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 And if you have questions that you want us to help you with during Quilt Talk, email them to us at jodi@squareandasquare.com, and we'll talk about your question and see if we can help you. And even if we need to have a little demo thing, we'll have time to get
As long as
something
we know
together.
beforehand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we know
a little bit
beforehand.
beforehand.
And we're going to do some binding stuff for
Okay.
people want to know more about the shortcut binding tool is so cool. It puts a flange on the same time that you're doing the binding. And I don't know here, Steve, if you can look at this quilt here, but you can see how that little white edge in between the black border and the binding, and how that little white edge just really makes it pop and snap. And this quilt just has it has a black check, the black, and the background, and it's just beautiful with those three colors, but with that little white pop in the binding,
It does
just
pop it. It just
really
does.
makes it very elegant and over the top beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a great.
It's done by
great
machine,
quilt.
so those people that don't
Yes.
like to hand bind.
Yes, it's
it's
all
all done by
done
machine.
on the machine. Yeah. So did we have any last minute questions come in? So we're going to do Quilt Talk tomorrow, and I'm not sure what time yet, but we'll send you an email on that when we discuss our filming schedule tomorrow.
Right.
It could be that we do it a little earlier in the afternoon or in the morning.
Right, or kind of let us know what time
Yeah.
you kind of like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
If a time is
Yeah,
better,
we
we
get-
can't
Well,
accommodate everybody.
yeah, Susie in Norway is going to tell us she
Yes,
wants us
she
to
wants
do it
it
at 1 a.m.
1 a.m. Okay, yeah, no.
And Mavis in South
That's true.
Africa.
That's true. Okay.
She
well,
usually-
forget that.
She usually watches us right before she goes to bed.
Yeah.
So.
And it's there tomorrow or something.
No, it's last night. So, Steve, any last minute questions before we sign off?
What was the name of the quilt you showed with the flange?
That one is called Poinsettia Star. It's in the Diamonds by the Square reference book, volume 2. It's what we call our diamonds book, and it's Poinsettia Star. And if you like those colors, we do have kits for it on the website. And it's option 4 pinwheel in the middle. It's option 3 flying geese on those outside points. It's option 11 in the corner, and then option 18 makes those long, thin star points.
Yep.
Just beautiful. Normally those would be like 8-pointed long, thin units that you would
She
Take
just,
forever
do
to
set in
figure out how to
pieces.
do it.
And that if you did it the old traditional way,
oh.
it's one of those that you would start and you would say, "Holy moly,
I'm done.
I'm
done.
Yeah, I'm done.
I'm making a pillow.
I don't. Yeah,
I'm making a pillow
yeah,
out
I'm
of
making a pillow.
it. It's a dog bed.
It's a one block wonder.
yeah, one block wonder.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
We have another person from South Africa, so.
Yes.
And
We have a large
she's
group
trying
of
to get,
South Africa.
Her head wrapped around this square system. I think it's the way to get perfection for my needs. That's what she's thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The square to
You
square
can.
system does give you perfection. It gives you speed. It gives you accuracy. It helps remove and improve the human element because you do all your cutting and sewing in that basic square. And we're humans. It's not going to be
Right.
perfect. But then when you put the ruler on there to help get it all trimmed up into whatever triangle unit you're getting, it helps remove those issues and it gives you clean units and good seam allowances.
Maybe one final one. They want to see some dusty and clear fabric examples tomorrow.
Oh, I was
Well,
going to ask you about
Everybody
that.
always says they want to see
Yeah.
dusty and clear. I don't own any clear. I have gone through my stash
Did you bring it?
from
We-
top to
I-
bottom.
So is clear?
I'm not
would
sure
clear
what you
be
mean.
like?
Bright?
like a Clorox white.
Okay.
Clear colors.
You can
Okay.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, we have
Yeah,
to
we'll
think about
discuss
that,
it.
and maybe
Yeah.
we'll
We'll-
look at
we'll
our
do a
quilts
little-
or something,
yeah, we'll
or
have to-
we'll look and see
Because
if
I'm
any of
not
our
sure
clears.
which. Yeah, I wasn't going to ask.
Because
it on
is
camera. I
that
was
like
gonna
a
ask you
Tula
later.
pink or a Tula or
Well,
a cave?
Really,
But some of those
it's not
could be
necessarily
to
bright.
me, Tulia and Fawcett, they fit a little more in the dusty, even though
Dusty,
people
okay.
call them brights.
brights.
Yeah.
To me,
just
they're more the
kind of-
dusty.
His in particular, I
Yeah,
think.
and I think that's probably what draws me to those two, even though the colors are out of my realm.
Right.
But because they're the dusty gray goods
Yeah.
that they start with, it's the tone of fabric on
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
the
Okay.
clear.
We'll have to see what we can
We'll
find.
have to see what we'll
Yeah.
find
we can
something.
give you an
Like
example.
my tattered and torn, the tan that's on that Poinsettia Star, even though it's lighter and it's more creamy or white, it's still in a dusty tone.
Dusty tone.
It's not a clear,
It's not a clear,
white,
bright
Clorox
white.
It's not a bright.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Even though people call Tulia and Coffee Faucet bright,
They're
it's
just-
not a clear.
Okay.
In
Somebody
my
says
books.
that Jodi is wearing clear colors.
There
Um,
she goes.
My white
Yeah, your
probably could be more clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think my green is. My green is probably dusty, but
Dusty
this
and
is
clear,
probably more
warm
white.
and cool colors on the color wheel.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if I touch the color wheel, it's warm over there, it's cold over there.
That's right. That's right.
Well, before we close, I want to give one little shout out.
Okay.
My granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, is 11 years old today.
Yay!
Her name is Abigail Iris Thompson, and she lives in Asheville, North Carolina.
Happy birthday,
Hi,
Abby.
Happy birthday, Abby!
All right, we're going to sign off for now. We'll see you tomorrow in Quilt Talk and a couple of other times this week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey!